Hello everyone. I would like to say a special greetings to all the new subscribers that have come in since Jennifer Billick shared Money and the Cost of Gender on Twitter. That's been really good. Welcome to this channel. I have one video about Sam Lux that I'm working on, and I was going to go with a particular angle, and then I was watching Distorted Linds and her interview with Vanessa Vokey. It's a great interview. I really like both their work. Vanessa Vokey is hilarious, I think. I think she's probably, in my opinion, the closest to someone making stuff in the style that Magdalene Burns did, because it's as cutting as what Magdalene Burns used to do. Yeah, big fan. And at one point in the interview, they were talking about, or Vanessa was talking about cruelty and being cruel and recognizing your own capacity for cruelty, and how if you don't think that you can be cruel, then you'll never ask yourself that question. And so she was saying, like, I'm aware of my capacity to be cruel, and she was talking about sort of different parts of her interaction with Sam. I think the way that she phrased it was like, I sympathize with him as a young boy, but he's grown into an asshole. And that's sort of along the lines of the video that I was going to make, because one of my favorite things to do with any trans YouTuber is to order their videos from oldest first, and then you look at the old stuff to see who was this person prior to transition. And yeah, there are elements to the story that are sympathetic, but then there are elements that aren't, and I think the best comparison is actually to the John Safran episode where he dresses up in blackface, because there are parts of it that I haven't shown yet where he's talking about, but I always, felt this way, and society didn't like that I was white and trying to do X, Y, Z, and those types of things. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of kind of useful parallels between Sam's experience and John's experience.
I was brought up in a white neighborhood. I was raised in a white Jewish family. And growing up, everyone always told me I should stop acting black.
So that should be coming soon. Oh, also go and watch King Critical's response to Philosophy Tube coming out as transgender. It's so good. Particularly the latter half. It just it builds and builds and gets better and better the more preposterous the presentation he's responding to becomes. Yeah, definitely check that out. It's one of the best breakdowns I've ever seen. What I wanted to talk about today was, I want to come up with a catchier name, but the only thing I can think of is the woke Mexican standoff. And I think this concept is probably applicable to all woke culture, but it's particularly concentrated in gender theist or gender identity extremist communities. So many people have pointed out that the gender theists have behaviors that are similar to, or exhibit behaviors collectively that are similar to the way that cults collectively behave. One of my personal favorite explorations of this is Artie Morty and the parallels he draws between gender theism and Scientology.
And part of Scientology is to go through a program of cleansing your body of these body thetans, so that you can be a pure, true, clear thetan without the interference of all of this stuff that's going on in your body. Well, doesn't that sound an awful lot like gender identity theory? In gender identity theory, you are a true, and your soul has a true and pure gender. This is the true gender expression that embodies your soul. Except your physical body is covered with markers of other gender identity expressions. You may have been born in a supposedly female body, but if your gender identity soul is male, is truly a guy, then you have to undergo a programmed to fix your body. You were born in the wrong body, and your body is covered. It's covered with gender expressions that don't align to your gender identity soul and need to be cleansed and purified through treatment.
And there are lots of different elements that can accumulate into a cult-like environment. But the one that I'm particularly interested in is the inability to leave of your own free will. If you've ever seen documentaries on the People's Temple and the Jonestown Massacre, the leader of the cult basically flew everyone to this remote location where they were living and building buildings and farm, like they were trying to make a little self-sustaining commune. And at one point, a politician had come to visit because like thousands of people had all of a sudden left the country and gone to live in this cult commune. And everyone was like, yeah, we love it. Of course we leave, but we don't want to leave. It's so good here.
Hello, family. It's such a joy and great pleasure being here because of Father's love. We are trying to make, and we are making, a place of refuge for all of you here. There's nothing at all that I have any holdings there. I do not want to go back in any way, shape, or form to the States. I love it here, and this is the place where all of you are going to be.
And then eventually one of the people in the cult managed to slip like a handwritten note to the politician, and then like the guards worked out that some people had done this, and then it all just went to shit, and very quickly after the mass suicide sort of began. So yeah, the ability to leave of your own free will is something that cults manage very tightly. And I think it's a fundamental aspect. So to me, something isn't a cult just because they have a weird belief system, or it's incredibly niche, or it's incredibly unpopular, or anything like that. To me, what makes something a cult is extreme suspicion of the outside world combined with being super vengeful towards ex-members. So, for example, if you leave an amateur sports team and decide, for example, I don't like playing basketball anymore, the people that are still playing basketball might be upset or disappointed or something like that. They might even think you're squandering your potential, but they're not going to see this act as you having betrayed basketball, at which point they set about trying to ruin your life and the life of anyone that they think you care about. And the thing is that most organized cults will have enough self-awareness to not admit this publicly. So, for example, when the politician rocks up at the People's Temple commune, they don't say, yeah, totally, if any of these idiots try to leave, we're going to shoot them in the back and make them all kill themselves. They say, of course they'd be able to leave. They can leave any time they want. They can leave today if they want. But because gender theists are among some of the least self-aware people on the planet, especially the younger ones, they'll often just come right out and say what a regular cult would only think behind a smile of gritted teeth. I've done this before. There's a text debate from Twitter that I made into a video where I pointed this out to the person I was debating and said, you realize everyone who's on your side will turn against you in an instant if you started to think things that weren't in line with the dogma. And they said, I would want them to. And the friends were like, yeah, of course we would. So they'll fully admit that they have figurative and, in some rare cases, actual guns pointed at each other's heads, and that they would eagerly tear apart the life of a person that they professed to love 5 minutes earlier if that person were to ever deviate from the church doctrine, and especially if they did it publicly. And in some ways you can kind of see the appeal. It's that kind of Fight Club thing of just looking for young people look for causes to die for. You see this in the Red Army faction and the Weather Underground. Retrospectively, dumb ideas that were completely counterproductive, but you can see the emotional role that this grouping played for the participants. And so they can they would see their willingness to turn on each other as being akin to how maybe members of the mafia would think about turning on someone who betrayed the family. The weird thing is that instead of the financial gain that one might anticipate from being a made guy in the mafia, gender theists instead lose a bunch of money and end up being unmade guys. Boom. However, both groups have a shorter life expectancy. Anyway, the ironic thing is that at the same time as having this structure, they'll often talk about how important it is to have good faith arguments with people and how they don't want to debate someone who isn't open to having their mind changed. This is distinctly something that I remember Riley Grace Rochon saying. But good faith is obviously a bit of a buzzword, which is why Bad Faith is a podcast that plays on that buzz. The point is, how willing could one possibly be to change their mind about a subject that would see them immediately expelled from and hunted by their previous loving social circle, especially if they've already signed up for lifelong debilitating medical interventions as a result of trying to fulfill the church doctrine? To anyone not in it, it would be like not only debating a committed member of Scientology who knows that if they turn against the church, they're immediately going to have to flee, but also a member who has gone so far as to get plastic surgery to literally look like Tom Cruise or L. Ron Hubbard or whatever other religious figure. I'm sure that person's going to be open to changing their ideas. And it's by pulling this dynamic out of the shadows and into the light that it allows us to see that one of the greatest strengths of the movement, that a large number of people all repeat the mantras.
His name is Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson.
Is actually a result of one of the biggest weaknesses of the movement, which is that it only works because they're all caught up in this giant social Mexican standoff with each other.
You said if anyone ever interferes with Project Mayhem, even you, we gotta get his balls.
If you leave, I'll shoot you. If I leave, you'll shoot me. The way I like to imagine it is to picture that you're walking down a street when all of a sudden, way up ahead, you see a large group of gender identity extremists holding a demonstration of some sort. At the moment, they're too far away to clearly see what's happening, but you can see the pink and blue flags waving and everyone's passionately repeating the various mantras over and over again.
His name is Robert Paulson.
But then, as you get closer, you see that rather than being participants in a giant loving community, the thousands of people repeating these mantras are actually caught up in this giant Tarantino-esque Mexican standoff where they're going like, "Are trans women women? Trans women are women! Trans women are women! Are trans women women? Trans women are women! Trans men are men! Did you just say trans women are men? No, I said trans women are women! Oh my god, what a relief! Woo woo, I love you! Woo woo, I love you too!" I think it's a very easy thing to highlight because they're so obvious about the fact that this is how they operate. They haven't even gotten to the level of like, we should try and conceal this in some way. And once that's been acknowledged, it then dramatically undermines any other point that they want to make from that point onwards. So yeah, highly recommend.
I'll fucking ruin you, taking your cash cow when I grill it and serve it back to you. There's some barbecue wrap for you, chew it up. It's the coup de grace.